Hey guys, welcome to Business Coder. In today's video, I wanted to walk over my VS Code setup and specifically what kind of extensions I'm using for my day-to-day productive coding, which is the most important thing actually if you think in your day-to-day work, specifically coding. If you don't have the correct environment set up, or it's not set it up on specifically on your needs, you'll struggle. You'll spend a lot of time dealing with the issues that are not necessarily related to the programming process itself. So in that sense, sometimes like we are dealing with the problems like there is a wrong Node.js version, or there is not enough file watchers, or we are misspelling some variables and hitting some errors, or we change the code base and we don't remember who actually made that changes or why we changed that stuff. So there is a lot of cases that could go wrong, and your actual coding editor or IDE could help you a lot, specifically if you have configuration in place and you have that extensions that could help you, that could boost your actual productive coding. So even if you are working in a non-pressured environment where you don't have deadlines that coming to you, but it's really crucial in order just to really feel that comfort of working and coding on your project, is just to have a proper environment set up. Specifically, the Visual Studio Code could help you achieve a lot of goals that just bringing you problems from day to day. So let's just jump on the Visual Studio Code configuration and understand what I specifically done for my productive setup. So this is actually my VS Code like local setup. As you can see, I don't have like that much of extensions enabled. It's 33 right now, and the actual like extension packs that I have is really the most essential ones, because if you know, like VS Code is running under the hood, like using the actual Electron setup with a bunch of language processing services running with JavaScript. And if you have a lot of extensions that are enabled, essentially what you'll end up like burning a lot of CPU and a lot of memory, and you can find like tons of topics related to VS Code overloading CPU, overloading memory. So that's why I just keep my VS Code setup as minimum as possible, but at the same time I have all necessary things that I need during my day-to-day work. Specifically, if I'm working with JavaScript, VS Code is just an ultimate killer there. So let's just start looking over the actual extensions that I have enabled here. So the first one, let's go like from the straight list. This one, like pretty much obvious from the name. Whenever I have some kind of a tag inside an HTML code, it just helps me to rename that. They have like pretty much a good example there. So this really helps if you are making a React components, or working with some kind of like nested HTML stuff. It just helps you whenever you're renaming a tag, for example, changing a span to A or A to other tag. It just helps you to rename that automatically at the end, and you don't have to go and find where is the like closing tag for this. This is more of a like the productivity stuff. It's really saves you time I just I just don't imagine working without this. It's so useful to have. So this one is bracket pair colorizer. Is one of the greatest things. You can see like they have pretty much around 2.5 million active installations, which is a a big number for VS Code extension. So they have this colorization stuff when you have open and close brackets, and they are basically providing a specific color and highlighting that, so you can find the closing brackets very easily. Let's say I have an Electron app that we're building on this channel, and we have here like open and closed brackets. You can see like it's little bit more blurrish, and this is the line that goes and shows the exact like closing bracket here. It just helps a lot, especially if you have this kind of like large function. You can just follow this line until the end of the next bracket that closes that up. It's just so useful, and it actually saves a lot of time, because sometimes like you're just hitting a bugs that you haven't closed bracket, or it's not obvious where the bracket closes. So this helps a lot. So my most favorite one is code spell checker. You can see like there's a lot of code base that people are writing without even like checking, is this like even correct in English. English is not my native language. You can just understand that the way how I speak, but the actual use case for this is not only the like the comments, etc. It also the variable names. Sometimes you can hit let's say the wrong variable name, and later on like you are just using that essentially by typing it correctly, but if you declare that variable from the beginning with misspelling, then everything goes wrong, and that kind of bugs like really hard to find, because if you misspelled one letter, usually you can't like understand where is the actual problem there. I just wrote that correctly, and that happens like with pretty much everyone. Even if you are an English speaker, this is like the essential one to have. So next up, I'll say the material theme is kind of like based on your preference, but I like the way how it's structured and the coloring, etc. So it's pretty much my way to go having this. So we all can just skip this Dart and Docker integration, like it just based on your workflow. The most obvious for me is just file icons. I just love having the nice looking file icons, and whenever I am looking on a project, I just want to see this TS icon, or like HTML5 icon, or like I don't know, SCSS icons. I just visually can see that there is a like different type of files, and I really need just to understand that from the perspective of development, switching files between that like pretty easily, and you don't have to like really keep in mind what is the file naming. You just looking on icons. That's pretty much it. So I had also like experimented some Flutter, so I have the Flutter actual extension. So I wanna focus a little bit on Git Lens. I believe like this one is pretty much essential if you are working with a team and you use Git primarily for storing your code base. So this extension is actually a way to get the actual like I would say ultimate Git usage with the history, with a lot of things that you by default think that it's not necessary, but if you're working with a team, especially if it's like historically you joined that team later on late stage of development, it's just crucial just to have this kind of tool and get track the history of what kind of changes are made and who specifically made that changes. Let's say this actually like shows the history, branches, remotes, tags. So if everything you can have like in your VS Code, you don't have to even like visit GitHub or GitLab whenever you are using the Git repository. And the most crucial thing actually that I use a lot is the authoring and tracking information. Let's say I can click here. This is the like coming through that GitLens extension. I can click here, and based on a file, I can see that hey, this is the like commit that changed this file, and these specific lines changed by, let's say, this author, and it just gives you a tons of information about what when changed and what is the current state of the file. It just makes life a lot easier, especially if you want to track the project development process and you are product owner or team lead, etc. It's just essential to have for the team workflow. It helps a lot. So Intellisense for CSS class names. This one is pretty good actually. Extension if you want to have that like class name auto completion. Usually it's better to have, but not actually necessary. But it makes life a lot easier just to have it. The live server, whenever you have a static HTML file that you want to serve and don't necessarily want to build up some Node.js or anything, or don't want to install the npm itself, there is a small button here on the right bottom side where you can click go live, and that's it. Like it will start serving your project files. The actual npm IntelliSense, this one, the npm IntelliSense is one of the best things that you can use if you want to track the actual package histories. So if I will go to my package.json file, you can see there is version icon v like here, and it shows like, for example, currently I have 4.2.4 version, but latest one is 5.1, so I can just upgrade that by clicking here. It will automatically upgrade, and then you can just hit the npm install, and that's it. So this one is really good if you want to track your package history and you want to keep your project up to date, but it's not essential, but it's really good to have. Especially if you got a historical old project and want to upgrade the packages. Here you can just upgrade that with just one click. Basically no other stuff you have to do in order to achieve that. So there is a path IntelliSense, but this one is actually like if you used to type a TypeScript or you have Webpack configured, so you don't need this. It comes along with the configuration itself. But if you don't have that, or you just want to have like the basic import or require work properly, you can just install this one. So support for Postgre, nothing that much here. So prettier is popular one, so I believe it's by default if I don't mistaken. So the actual last thing that I want to focus on in terms of extensions is project manager. This just insanely helpful. Essentially, VS Code don't have the ability to say name a project. It just serves like the workspace or directory. But in terms of a project, you can just keep groups of projects, or even name a specific directory or path as a project and save the list of your projects. And you don't have to like go into command line and spin up VS Code for that specific directory. It just works from the list of your projects. I will say I have like installed that here. Let's say I have these projects, and whenever I will click there, it will reload this existing window and will open that directory itself. And if I want to open it with the new VS Code instance, I just click open new window, and it just opens that up in a new window of the VS Code. So this is really useful for organizing your entire workspace. And you don't really have to create the configuration of workspace, etc. Whenever you are inside that project, you can just hit let me just show you a little quick. You can just hit that save project manager and save project. So in this sense, you are just essentially saving this project. It will appear inside the list, and later on you can just open up that whenever you want without going to command line. And so this just makes a lot faster navigating between multiple projects, especially if you are working on multiple projects same day, I'll say same hour as I'm doing right now. Yeah, so essentially this is the general workflow that I have on my VS Code setup. There is also some kind of like minor things. I have like to-do highlighter, which actually give me like pretty much the alerting colors when there is something that I have to complete. There's a to-do for that, etc. But generally there is no other extension that I like needed in my current coding workflow. I use VS Code mainly for like TypeScript or JavaScript stuff, like React. So all related to JavaScript essentially, and in that manner, like VS Code handles that pretty well. Also in terms of like performance, it's just killing that. So that's it, guys. Hope you enjoyed my Visual Studio Code setup with the extensions walkthrough. And if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for our next videos. If you have any comments related to my Visual Studio setup, just write down below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. And if you have any suggestions, just letting me know. I'll just jump on making the full environment setup for the Mac, for Windows, and for Linux. If you struggle with any issues, just ping me. Stay tuned and see you next time.